What's going on, good people? Welcome back to another episode of the Trading Challenge. Today is day number 30, May 19th, 2023. We made some trades today, so let's get into it. So let's start our analysis with our first trade of the day over here at 1, slightly after the market opens at 9:30. So after we opened up initially, we formed a zone, respected the zone for a good little minute. We established a higher low after we had a very strong downtrend. So once that happened, I saw my favorite setup start to form, which is a downtrend that leads to a higher low being established. And then I look to draw my level of support based off of the lows for the higher low. And then as prices come back into that level, I want to go long. So that's what I was looking to do on trade 1, and I was able to take it from support back up to the top of the zone. Now up here, once prices broke out, I think that I missed a couple of opportunities right here to take some good trades, because if I was already looking for the long trade, I should have continued to look for that same trade. But I think I was just a little bit skeptical on the breakout, because I wasn't quite sure if this red candle right here would have enough follow through and momentum afterwards to be able to break back into the zone. So I wasn't quite sure about the breakout test, so I decided to skip the entry right here. But we see prices continue up along a channel line until they eventually reach the top of the channel, and that's exactly where I took trade number 2. Now right here at trade number 2, I think this is something that I've been having a problem with over the past couple of weeks, which is I've been going long just a little bit too high. I've been going long and buying into the move at higher prices. If anything, I should have been buying at the touch of the breakout, which I skipped. That's okay. Or if I'm not going to take that one, at least maybe take the next higher low, because this was also a touch of the channel line. So that was an opportunity to get in too. But for me to go long after I see a tweezer top, that's just not the best entry for me, because that decreases the probabilities of my long trade being successful. So I think my problem also is that instead of just taking, one bad trade and just leaving it alone, I think I have a very common habit of kind of trying to press the trade and make it work. And I think that's because on some of my other setups, maybe I'm a little bit too early, but the trade still has time to materialize. But when I'm too early into the move and I'm wrong about the direction, trying to press my trade is only going to lead me to a bigger loss and a deeper hole to work myself out of. And I think that's the problem that I ran into at 2, 3, and 4, because initially I went long at higher prices and I know that I should go long at lower prices. So when they came back to the actual higher low right here, that's where I looked to go long, as I saw prices start to move away right here at candle number 3. But the only thing was, this tweezer top was a lot stronger than I thought, and I should have just been patient enough to wait for prices to just come back and retest the zone, because if we already broke out of the zone and had a recess, more than likely if we start moving down, that's probably the level that we're going to go test. So we're either going to test this higher low or the next one, and this next one just happens to line up with the zone. So I think that's what I learned from that series of trades between 2 and 4. It's just, if you want to get on board with the trend, you don't have to buy it at the highest price. More than likely, if you're patient enough to wait for your best prices and your best levels, the market is going to come back to you. So it's just a matter of having enough discipline to wait for the best opportunity. So that's what I learned right there. And then when we come back to trade 5, now right here, this was just a bad decision by me, because remember how I said I was skeptical about the breakout before the first time we came and touched the zone? Well, I was also skeptical the second time that we came back. And once I saw us push through the zone on this candle right here, I was like, oh, okay, I see what the sellers are doing. We created a tweezer top, a lower high, and then we pushed back down to the zone. So more than likely, I thought that we were coming back to test yesterday's closing price. Now that's actually represented by this purple line. I don't think we talked about that when we started, but this purple line represents the closing price from Thursday, May 18th, and I think that price is 633,616. So I was expecting for prices to come back to that level, test it one more time, and then find support and move back up. But they actually came back just to retest the breakout of the zone that we established earlier in the market. They just retested that one more time. But because I was so skeptical, I was thinking, you know what? Let me go against this uptrend right now because I feel as though maybe it was a false breakout out of the zone. But I think if I want to go short inside of the zone, I need to wait for prices to close there, because really, if you look at this candle, all we did was push into the zone. But if you look at where we closed on that red candle, we closed right above the zone. So that's very significant. That's telling us that even though sellers had enough strength to get into the zone, they could not close it inside of it. So that should tell me something right there. That should tell me that the buyers are a lot stronger than the sellers. So I just have a higher probability of making money if I go on the long side rather than shooting the short side. So that's what I learned right there at Trade 5, just to not fight the trend even though you think it might work. Because if you think it might work, that's just an idea. You always want to wait for the confirmation on the chart before you dive into any trade, whether it's long or short. So that brings us to trade 6. So after we bounced off of the zone, we moved back higher. So at that point, I was like, okay, I see what's going on. I'm pretty sure that we are back into an uptrend, because if you look at most of the days throughout this week, let's go back for a second. Let's go back to Monday and go back through the rest of the week. So on Monday, we started off with a downtrend and then eventually made higher lows, and we had an uptrend that continued the rest of the day. This one on Monday actually came all the way back up to hit 33,350, kept going up. And the same thing happened on Tuesday. We had a downtrend that eventually led to an up move that lasted for a considerable amount of time, and this up move continued for the rest of the day also. We had the same scenario on Wednesday, a downtrend that eventually led to a pretty good uptrend. Same thing on Thursday. This was the morning session for Thursday, and then this was the afternoon session for Thursday. So we see the very same, not exactly the same, but a very similar pattern on Friday as well, where we started off with a downtrend and then eventually worked our way back into an uptrend for the rest of the day for a good amount of time. So with me having that information in mind, I was like, well, more than likely, if the trend is up, I just want to get on board and ride prices higher. But the only thing is, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about not buying at the highest prices. You always want to wait for prices to come back to a level of support, and then you want to see a bounce, and then you join into the trend and you go long and you start to buy. Because if you get in a little bit too early, because I'm a tight stop trader, that means that I really don't have the luxury of just getting into the trend wherever and then eventually just riding it out. I have to get into the trend at the best prices so my stop doesn't get hit. So that's what I really have to focus on. And then also at 6, I want to talk about respecting my break even trades, because on this one, I think I was up by about 15 points, but I didn't move my stop up to break even. And I think the reason behind me not doing that is something that's very common on my losing days also, which is whenever I take multiple losses, for some reason, I just always feel as though I have to get it all back on one trade. So if that one trade isn't offering me a big enough profit to make back all of those trades that I lost from, I really don't want to take that trade. And I think that's something that I got to change and work on, because what I have learned over time is that on all of the days where I was able to work myself from the negative back into the positive territory, it all happened because I was just taking good trade after good trade and not worrying about how much this trade is going to make for me. I'm just worrying about making the best execution, the best entry, the best trade management, and the best exit. And then just do that like 2 or 3 times and you'll look up, and before you know it, you'll be back into the green. So I think at trade 6, I had an opportunity to, I couldn't get my full scalp target out of this one, but I did have an opportunity to get maybe 14 or 15 points. And not only did I pass up on it, I also didn't move my stop up to break even to just protect me if prices ever came back. So that led to me taking another loss at trade 6. So then we move on to the very next trade after. So see how I bought on trade 6 initially? I bought too high. So on this one, it's not marked up, but let's call this one 6A. So right here at 6A, I realized my mistake from the original trade at 6. So I decided, okay, let me go long from lower prices like I should be doing. And that was a great entry right there. I did a great job at identifying the trend and actually acting on that idea. Now the only thing was my exit was definitely not as good as it should have been. It was actually very, very poor because if we look at what happened, prices came all the way back up to retest the top of this swing high. Now I was being a little bit greedy and I was waiting for prices to come back and retest the top of this tweezer high, right? But sometimes in the market you have to take what's available to you. And on this trade specifically, I remember I had more than my original scalp target would have been. It's usually 21 points. I think on this trade I was up to like maybe 24 or 25. So in my head I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna let the trade run. But look, that's not really my type of strategy. That works for other people, but for me, I just don't want to sit through a pullback. And if you let your trade run, ultimately you probably will have to sit through maybe 1, 2, or 3 pullbacks. And I just don't prefer to trade that way. So for me to even adapt that mindset was a problem in itself because I'm straying away from my scalping methodology. So that was just me being a little bit greedy right there and not taking what was on the table. And the same thing happened at 7. So I took the short trade right here because once I saw prices bounce away from the top of the zone, I expected for them to at least come back and test the bottom of the zone. Now, they did exactly that right there. And I had a chance to get out once they broke back down through the zone. So not only did they hit the bottom, they pushed through and came all the way back to retest this higher low. Now, I got a little bit greedy right here also, and I was like, look, I had the same mentality that I had on trade 6, where I'm saying, if I can't get my big trade, then I just don't want to take anything at all. And once again, I had a positive trade that I let come back to break even, past my break even stop, and end up as a loss. So on trade 6, 6A, and 7, I left all of those profits on the table. And what's interesting, what's really, really interesting is that if you combine all of the points that I would have made from trade 6, 6A, and trade 7, I would have been able to absolutely more than make back what I lost on trades 2, 3, 4, and 5. And also this little trade right here, I forgot about that. That was a smaller loss, like 2 or 3 points, but it still counts. So even with that, I would have been able to still get back into positive territory if I just focus more so on taking the trade that's in front of me and not trying to force the issue. I've learned that there is a way to force the issue to get your money back when you've made losses. It's not to get it all back on one trade, but rather the strategy is to push on every individual trade and make each individual trade the best trade that you can do. So if the market is offering you 15 points, you take that 15. The market comes back and offers you 20 something points, you take that too. And then they come back and offer you 15, 18, you take the next trade too. And you just keep taking the good opportunities that the market is giving you. And before you know it, when you look up, you'll be back into the green. So I think that's where I went wrong today. And that led to some pretty big losses. As a matter of fact, I almost hit, my ultimate loss limit, which is $1,000. I was $7 away. Now I originally set my own personal loss limit to be 500 because for me, I feel like that's comfortable. But today I had a lot of choices and I just made the wrong choices when it came to accepting my losses and being able to walk away. And I think that's just something I got to work on. I'm much better than that, and I know that I can be a whole lot of a better trader and not make those types of mistakes. But it just comes down to discipline and being able to follow the strategy that you have in place. So that's really what I've been learning, not only today but over these past 2 or 3 weeks. I think that's very important because I've had so many winning trading days where I've come in and do the right thing, but I think these big losing days are what is really kind of putting me back and not allowing me to get to the place that I want to be. So that's something I'm really working on and focusing on cleaning up. So all of that happened after trade 7. So let's move on to trade number 8. So I think right here, this was just another consequence of me not taking what was available. At trade number 8, I think my frustration levels probably hit an all-time high because I'm looking at the market and I'm seeing myself make good trades, but I'm looking at my profit and loss and I'm seeing the losses keep piling up. because I'm making good trades, but I'm not capitalizing and maximizing on those trades when I have the opportunity to take profit. And then it leads to situations like trade 8 where you see bad trades in the market and you know that you're not supposed to take it, but somehow some way you just still end up doing it. We came back up to the top of the zone right here and we were at almost the highest price of this entire swing to the upside, and that's where I decided to go long. So that's really the same mistake that I made from trade 6. So I continued to make that same mistake as we continued through the session. And of course, me buying at higher prices, it didn't work, which is a bad trade. But then if you look at trade 9, I doubled up on that trade. So what I really did was I split my contract size up. So instead of trading my full 2 contract size on trade 8, I took 1 at trade 8 and then said, okay, I'll take 1 at the bottom of, I guess, this higher low support level at trade 9 where that's located. So I split my contract size up, and that's really just something that usually doesn't lead to success, because if you ever feel like you have to split your contract size, subconsciously that's your mind telling you that you really don't believe in that trade as much as you should in order to actually put money behind it. Because if you really did believe that the trade would work, you would put your whole size behind it and not half of it. So I think anytime I ever have an idea about using half my size, maybe I need to seriously reconsider where exactly we are in the market and what price structure is telling me right now. And I need to reevaluate if it's a good opportunity to get into the market or if I should just wait a little bit. So 8 and 9, that was just pure frustration. But I was able to come back on trade 10 and actually make some more good decisions. So that's a common theme throughout this entire session, where I've been making good trades, but I just haven't been able to capitalize. And that's exactly what happened right here at trade 10, because I went long at the bottom of the zone, expecting to take it back up to the top of the zone. That's one of my textbook setups when it comes to my playbook that I look for. So everything was well on this trade except for the management of my stop, because a lot of times when it comes to a consolidation zone, prices have a tendency to come back. Like if I go long at the bottom of support, prices have a tendency to come back and retest that level a few times before it actually makes that move. Now you'll have occasions like this one where you hit the bottom of the zone and then you go back to the top, or like this one where you hit the bottom and then you're back to the top. But sometimes you can hit the bottom and then just kind of like play around a little bit. This one was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for 8 minutes. Well, really for 9 minutes, we were just down here playing around the zone. Like, okay, we're not sure if we want to go up, but we definitely don't want to break past the support level of the zone. So in scenarios like that, when it's more likely for prices to come back to test your entry price, you got to keep your stop where it should be, which is your original stop target. Now, for a lot of my trades, when I get more than halfway to my profit target, I like to move my stop up to break even. But what I've learned from markets like a consolidation market and a channel market, a lot of times you have to keep your stop where it is, because the market has a tendency to come back and retest it. And you don't want to see what happened right here happen to you, which is you bring your stop back to break even, and then it comes back to your price, and then it goes exactly in a direction that you thought it would be originally when you got into the trade. So I think right there, it's just me being more focused on every aspect of the trade. I think I kind of was on autopilot a little bit. I saw prices move past my break even trigger, so I moved the stop to the break even point. But you got to focus on what's in front of you, because every detail matters. It's not good enough to come with 9 out of 10. You got to come here with 10 out of 10 and be 100% focused every day. And that's what I'm learning as I go along. So when we come back to trade 11, that was also a revenge trade, just like trade 8 was, because I saw this big huge candle and I saw my move happen. And when I got stopped out and saw this candle form, it was probably maybe 25 seconds in between those two things happening. And I was just so frustrated because I had already been losing throughout the day. I said, this trade is my opportunity to just make a good chunk of those losses back, and I should be good. Just make good decisions going forward from here, and I should be able to work myself back into profit. So to see that trade not work, I was like, man, goodness gracious, this market is just kicking my butt. And when you have thoughts like that, sometimes you just got to take your L and just walk away and come back the next day. Because honestly, I really believe in my trading plan. And I believe that I can come into the market and make money consistently. But I also realize that there will be days where it's just not working. But on those days, I can't keep pressing the issue. I got to just say, look, it's not my day. It's time to walk away and just accept it. Now, I really hate that feeling, but it's just something that I think I need to get used to. It's part of the business, man. It's what, 250 something trading days in a year. More than likely, you'll probably have some losing days here and there. Now, you don't want to have too many, but there will be some. So you have to prepare to be able to handle those days the right way. And I think a big portion and a big method to handling those days is not to take revenge trades like I did at trade 11, because I said, well, if the bottom of the zone worked, then you know what, I'm just gonna short the top of the zone. But I knew in my mind that that was a bad trade, because one of my biggest rules for my trading plan is to not trade against momentum. I either want to join in with the momentum or just sit it out and not trade at all. But the one thing I should never do is go against the momentum, and that's what I did right here at 11, just out of frustration. So I think overall for today, like, I did make some bad trades. That's definitely 100% fact. But I had opportunities to bounce back from those trades, but because I was being so greedy and not focusing on what's in front of me, but just focusing on making everything back, I think that prevented me from actually being able to reach my goal. So I think rather than focusing on making the money back, I just need to focus on making good trade after good trade. Like, when I'm thinking about getting into the market, let me ask myself a few things. Is this an ideal setup for me? Based on the market conditions, does this ideal setup make sense? And based on my, I guess, my positioning in the day, like how much profit am I up by or how much am I down by? Does this trade make sense for me to take right now? So once I ask myself all of those questions and go through my checklist and everything pans out and is right, then I should get into the market. So I just really think I need to focus on my decision making and like just focus on not trying to make it all so fast. Not only when I'm down and in the negative, but also when I'm up in the positive, because I started off the day pretty well at trade 1 and I had opportunities to build on that, but I just wasn't patient enough, and that was really evident at trades 2 through 5. So I think that's really what it comes down to, man. I did have a bad day, but I know exactly what went wrong, and I know what I need to do to be able to clean it up. So that's what I'll be focusing on going into my back testing sessions. I'm looking to just become a better trader and get better today than I was tomorrow. So I want to come back on Monday ready to go for day 31. And until then, you guys, take it easy.